Once you've rolled out your slabs on the slab roller, you can carefully transfer those to a wearboard, bring them over to your workspace, and continue the process of preparing your slab. So the first thing to do with a slab of clay that's come off the slab roller is to compress the clay and stretch it a little bit in the opposite direction. Slab roller only stretches the clay in one direction, and clay's memory will make it shrink greater in that same direction as it's drying and firing. And we want the clay to shrink evenly in all directions. So we'll compress the clay in the opposite direction that the slab roller stretched it. So our slab roller stretched our slab this direction. We're going to come in with a rolling pin, just apply light pressure, and compress the slab in the opposite direction. Then we can come in with our rib and smooth and remove the canvas texture and continue to compress that slab. Carefully flip the slab over and compress and smooth both sides. I'm holding the rib so it smooths the clay and compresses. I'm not holding it like this and scraping. I'm holding it flat against the clay, smoothing and compressing. For hard slab construction, we want to let our slabs dry to the soft leather hard state or leather hard state, depending on how we want to use our slabs. In soft leather hard, you can still curve a slab and create curvilinear forms. Hard leather slabs are really good for straight sides and sharp angles. We do not want to cut out our shapes using our template until the slab has gotten to that state. The clay will want to naturally dry from the edges, and we want to cut our shapes out of the interior that's all the same dryness and the same state. If we were to cut our shapes out first and then let those dry, the edges of our shapes would become dry, and then they would be difficult to join and attach. So we want to wait until we're ready to build before we cut out our shapes. There are two things you can do to get your slabs to dry to the leather hard state in an even way. The first and fastest way to dry out your slabs to leather hard is to use the concrete board tabletop. The concrete board will pull moisture out of the clay. So if we lay our clay out flat on the table and let it sit here for 10 or 15 minutes, and then come over and carefully pick up and rotate, making sure not to stretch or dent our slab, and let it sit with the other face down on the table for another 10 or 15 minutes, and then continue this process of flipping our slab over every 15 minutes or so. It will dry the slab out to a soft leather hard state to where you could begin to trace your templates and cut out your shapes and begin building. The other option is to take your slab, wrap it in newspaper or newsprint on both sides and around the edges. And then put a wearboard underneath and on top. And you can put another slab here that's wrapped in newsprint and another wearboard on top. And then those can go over to your shelf where they can set for a day or two. And you need to come in and check on them at least once or twice a day to make sure that they aren't drying out too fast. But you'll keep them totally wrapped in paper and sandwiched between wood boards. And that will allow your leather hard slabs to dry evenly and slowly. But you'll need to monitor that drying and be careful that they don't dry too much before you begin to work with them. If building with tar paper templates, you'll transfer your design to the tar paper using pencil and a straight edge. Cut out your stencil shapes as accurately as possible. Label your design and stencil pieces so you can keep track of what goes where. Place the templates on your slabs and trace the edges, transferring the shape to the clay slab. Transfer the labeling to the clay if you're not keeping your tar paper templates attached to the clay surface as you build. Carefully cut out your shapes using your fettling knife. If using anything sharper than a fettling knife, you must have a cutting surface beneath your clay slabs. Do not cut directly onto the table or onto the wearboards with X-Acto knives or other sharp cutting implements. Depending on your design, you may want to build with softer or harder slabs. Leather hard slabs are rigid and hold their shape well, allowing for crisp geometric shapes. If you want to curve and bend your slabs, you should build when the clay is a bit softer. The slabs I'm working with are just at the leather hard stage and can still be bent, but only so much before they will crack. Here's a trick for if you want to make really dramatic curves with your slabs. Using thin plastic, place it on your slabs before you put your templates down and cut out your shapes. Using a sharp X-Acto knife, trace your shapes, ensuring to cut through the plastic. Then cut out your shapes, leaving the thin plastic film on the surface. The plastic will support the clay and allow you to bend and curve it much more than without the plastic. You can compress the surface if you see any cracks. Cutting beveled edges on slabs. If you are beveling the edges of your slabs, there's a technique for cutting specific angles along a straight edge. First, measure the thickness of your slab. This is represented by the letter N in this equation. To solve for y, multiply depending on the angle that you need. For instance, when cutting a 45-degree angle, you multiply the thickness of your slab by 1 and use this measurement to place your straight edge that will guide your cut. Place your slab on the edge of a very straight wearboard or straight edge of the table. Measure and mark back from the top corner of your slab the distance that you calculated for y. This is where you will place your straight edge. Now, resting your fettling knife on the straight edge of the ruler and the table, cut the bevel, allowing the straight edges to guide the fettling knife. Be sure to backstop the cut with your thumb at the end to keep the clay from breaking away and ruining your corners. Cut all of your beveled edges and do a dry fit to make sure that everything is going to line up the way you want it to. Once you've cut all your shapes out and prepared the edges, you want to begin building immediately before your pieces start to dry out. Make some slip by getting a container and scooping some clay slip from the reclaim bin. Mix it up until it's smooth. Score and slip your edges generously before building. Scoring the edges while they lay flat will keep them from getting messed up. Be sure to score at least 3 times, adding slip between each score. Carefully join your pieces using straight edges and supports when necessary. Compress the inside seams when possible. And compress the outside edges with a rib and your fingers. Give the attachments time to set up before doing your final refinements. You can also backfill connections if you choose. Do this by scoring the area where you want to backfill and applying a coil, or in this case, the cut-off beveled edge fits perfectly.